Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, are we bearish or are we bullish on the Red Raiders joining the ranks of conference title contenders? And to score or not to score? Somehow that's a question.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you as we are cruising through the open week. Red Raiders with a breather before they are back at Jones Stadium to host the Baylor Bears. Might have seen by now, homecoming ball game announced as a 3 o'clock Central Standard Time kickoff. Will be broadcast on ESPN2. Plenty of time to talk about that matchup, obviously, in days to come, but still considering what we have seen to this point in the season for the Red Raiders, basically the midway point of the regular season. Looking ahead at the schedule that is still to come, and also want to get into a little bit today the ebb and flow of what we've seen in the Big 12 Conference thus far elsewhere and how that makes us feel about Texas Tech's schedule, maybe compared to the way we felt prior to the season. And I also want to get into something that has been heavily discussed among the Matador Mob members following the ball game on Saturday night. It's related to Tahj Brooks, a touchdown, and a healthy dose of hindsight. We'll talk about a question as to whether or not you slide or you score coming up in just a moment, Chris. But back to the schedule thing. You know, you and I approached this season and we're thinking, hey, pretty favorable given some preseason projections within the Big 12 Conference. You know, you're thinking about some of those early favorites coming into the year that Texas Tech did not have on their schedule. Teams like K-State or Utah or maybe even Kansas. And obviously games now being played once again. I don't know how many years in a row it is, but once again revealing the foolishness of preseason polls. I wish they'd go the way of the dodo bird, but they never will. But they were wrong in many directions once again. And it kind of has me considering, have I changed my thought on what Tech's conference schedule actually is? Has it gone from maybe light to a little heavier? And I also think we may even look back to some of these non-conference contests, Chris, and view them a little bit differently than we did as we were going through it or as we were preparing for it. You may have seen this out there already, but Texas Tech, the only team in the country that has got wins exclusively against opponents who still have winning records at this point in the year. So maybe the entire thing's a little heavier than we anticipated. But what have you noticed so far about the ebb and flow, particularly of some of those Big 12 teams? And I'm wondering if maybe it has changed your feeling a little bit compared to preseason about this schedule.
I think you can talk yourself into a lot of different scenarios here and say, boy, you wish you could do this. And man, if it was just like this. I think even if you were, because I mean, you avoid BYU, that's turned out to be far different than what you thought was before the year. You're kind of thinking, wouldn't hurt to see the old Cougs on the schedule. I don't know if they can sustain this. I'm ready for them to get to come to Lubbock, which I think they do next year. I think that you've in a way you were thrilled that you didn't have Kansas, the preseason top 25. They're done. When's basketball start? They have been competitive, but it's just not working. And Jalen Daniels is not what anybody thought. And I feel like we called that back in the summer. He had been hurt. He had not proven to stay healthy, and now he's proven not to just play very well. So there's that. Utah, everybody's favorite, but their quarterback has been hurt. And I keep hearing and reading, well, Utah's still the favorite if, and the if ain't reality right now. Your quarterback is not healthy. Cam Rising is hurt. He's always hurt. I don't know what that looks like, but I think you could talk yourself in and out of a lot of these things because I think we would both agree right now. Maybe a trip to Stillwater later on down the year for the Red Raiders doesn't seem near as daunting as we once thought it would be. I think the TCU game I'm still don't have a great feeling about, but that may not be as daunting as you once thought it would be. But I still think Houston over TCU happens every weekend here. I think that you can kind of start looking and trying to go, man, if we could just do this or that, if we'd have had this or that, if we could have played them here or there or whatever. I just think everybody's beatable. Everybody can go down the worst to the first. I just don't think there's a lot of gap here between. 9 of the 19 actual conference games have been one-score games. That's up from last year. That's 47%. You've played in 3 of those. 3 p.m. kick for Baylor, 3 one-score games for you. So I keep doing the 3. But yeah, so I just schedule-wise, let's be honest too. Doesn't Colorado look a bit better than we would have thought?
Better than last year.
Sure. And can it sustain it? What does it look like in a month when you play Colorado? What does it look like in nearly 2 months when you play West Virginia? There's still potential coaching changes to be made. There's still injuries that are going to alter the scenario here. There's still probably portal entries to go on, or you know what? I'm going to redshirt. We don't want you to redshirt. Sorry. I'm in control of my own destiny, Mr. Coach or General Manager of whatever collective out there may be. So there's all these dynamics that can still shift it, but I think you still have taken advantage of a favorable, not easy, favorable schedule, but different games going forward for you look a bit tougher. Others maybe don't look as tough, but that's if you're playing these things on paper and kind of trying to project, and that's an impossibility right now, especially in this league.
Yeah, I think you might even throw, like a Cincinnati into the better than we thought team category. And we'll see how they continue with the remainder of this season. They had an open weekend following their loss against Tech. But that's another one that maybe has bucked a preseason assessment, so to speak. So some things changing. Texas Tech, we're hoping, is going to be one of those teams that is a preseason number 9 in the Big 12 conference. And you've got much higher aspirations, obviously, as you sit here.
Cincinnati too, right?
Yeah.
These are teams that have already basically either tied or eclipsed their win totals from last year with a long way to go. And I think that if you're trying to argue how good you feel about your team, it's difficult to do that in a way saying, well, we beat a couple of 3-win teams last year, and you need to see more body of work because maybe they proved to be legit. Maybe they proved to be just average. I'm not real sure. But you did just beat a 10-win team from last year, and you beat a team that just went on the road and beat the conference favorite at their place. You've got that in your back pocket. But what you have, in front of you is rather interesting. And I think each one of them is a landmine. They all can be. Not that they all will be, but I think if anybody's expecting easy here going forward, I just think because I'd love for Baylor to spend the week and a half off here drinking jugs full of quit. Just juggle the quit.
Yeah.
Two-fist it. Just pour it down your just guzzle it by the gallon. But and some teams will. Somebody will mail it in and be like, I'm out, man. And I don't, Oklahoma State kind of looked like that the other day. So I don't, that's the dynamic because then you get into sometimes it's when you play people.
Sure.
And we'll just kind of see what we're getting as we go forward here. But these are all going to be tough. That's just what it is.
Well, and that example right there, I wouldn't mind having Oklahoma State next week, but I got to tell you, more time and into November for a Mike Gundy team, I'm like, they may figure some things out by then, if history is any indication. So I guess as it stands right now, you would feel like of the 6 remaining that you have on your schedule, the 4 most difficult are there laying at the end, with all due respect to Baylor and Texas Christian, which will be your next 2 after the open week. Baylor and Lubbock, Texas Christian and Lubbock East. But I don't think there's really any way to peg down anyone right now. I mean, just like you're alluding to in the Big 12 conference, the conference of 1-score margins. And you can't really peg down anybody and say, well, they're done. They're cashed in. Wouldn't mind if some of them would be, but probably hard to do that early on. Also hard to do early on, assess just exactly what we got right here in the LBK. And I wanted to ask you about, how ambitious you are, as we've seen 6 games now put on the resume. First, today's episode brought to you by Roy, and it's time to highlight the Yellow TT Roy Player of the Week. Roy is a brand new platform that lets fans make contributions directly to their favorite athletes. So download Roy for iOS or Android and enter in our referral code Locked On, and you're going to automatically be entered to win a sweepstakes of $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. This week, the player of the week, the man in the middle, Jacob Rodriguez, who turned in his best game as a Red Raider with a team leading 13 tackles against Arizona, with a sack, a pass breakup that turned into an interception, and a forced fumble at the biggest point in the game, helping the Red Raiders get a 28-22 win in Tucson. So for that, we're kicking Senor Rodriguez $100 on Roy. If you were as impressed as we were with Jacob Rodriguez's performance on Saturday, you can show him some love too. Just hop on Roy and throw in whatever you like. Any amount adds up fast. So now you have the chance to show your appreciation for Jacob and his standout performance for the week. Just download Roy for iOS or Android and enter our referral code Locked On, and you'll be automatically also entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. What are you waiting for? Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. I know that I've heard from some fans, both in the YouTube comments, Matador Mob insiders as well, asking about conference title contender category. Has Texas Tech entered that? And I saw also some media pundits following the Red Raiders win on Saturday saying, welcome to that category, Texas Tech. Are we bearish? Are we bullish? Depending on what category you're in, what more do we need to see? If you're maybe not feeling bullish about them quite yet. And Chris, I don't know you necessarily to rush to the water trough of dramatically increasing expectations. So I kind of have a guess maybe of where you might be, but I got to tell you, I'm still a little bearish on this, and it is because, in large part, not that I don't believe Texas Tech is a better football team than they were a season ago or maybe over the last 2 years, but the meat of your schedule is still out in front of you. Just like I said, I think the most difficult foes that you've got, and maybe Arizona's sort of in that category, so you've gotten over one hurdle, but the most difficult opponents you have are still out in front of you, and some are like a few weeks out in front of you. I will also plead guilty in not exactly knowing what a conference contender looks like, because I ain't seen one of those in, I don't know, quarter century or so. So I do have that working against me, but I'm just still a little bearish, and maybe that's in my skeptical nature. I just want to see more, and I am a believe it when I see it kind of Red Raider fan, which I'd advise all Red Raider fans to be. But how are you sitting here? Are you zooming into hey, it is title contention or bust? Not winning, but contending, as you've described it before, meaningful games in November. Where are you sitting now as we've got 6 on the resume?
And you've got 6 conference games left, because I remember asking you the question, Calvin, before the Arizona game. If you could go 2-2 over this next 4, would you take it? And I think if you do take it, you're probably saying that's probably our PTSD in the back of our minds going, man, we're not really a title contender, but I mean, I'd like to win more than I lose and show some improvement and all those things. Well, now you won the first one of that little 4-game stretch. Now,
and the one you didn't expect to get, probably.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. So I would answer the question this way: you've got 6 games left. you can afford one loss, I think, and still play in Arlington. I think you could potentially afford 2 losses. Now that gets a bit tricky, and you may share that with somebody, and then you get into tiebreakers and differential and some different things like that. So don't say that, because I refuse to believe that somebody's rolling through this thing with 0 losses. I think you could have, a trio of teams with 1 loss, but I bet there's one of these teams that plays in Arlington that's got more than 1 loss. So you may have one 1-loss team and a 2-loss team. I don't know, but I think that you get where I'm going.
Yeah.
So you don't have just a ton of margin for error. What I would say though is like, okay, let's keep that 4-game stretch. Now that you're 1-0 in that 4-game stretch, if you win 2 of your next 3, which is going to mean you hold serve at home more than likely, and then split those games on the road. I mean, I guess you could lose to Baylor and win both of the games on the road. But if you win 2 of the next 3, at that point I say, oh yeah, you are absolutely, and you are now. It's just there's still so much left to be decided and determined, and
only a third of the way in.
Exactly, a long way to go. A lot of craziness, a lot of injury that's going to dictate this race. A lot of, like I said, coaching change. And it's funny because you sit here and you talk about that, like about when it's good to play people. I mean, you theoretically could be playing Baylor at the absolute worst time. Some would argue it and say, I think it's the best. They will literally, if they can muster it up, and if they're right in their right mind, they are all playing and coaching for their jobs. So you get the guy backed into the corner that's like, screw it, I don't care. I'm willing to do anything to survive this one, because if not, we may not, we may get asked to clean out our office. I don't know. I'm just saying, and they haven't lost to a bad team. All the teams they've lost to are all really good, and 3 of those games are fairly close. They played a bad second half in Ames, and I've seen that movie before, even with really good teams. So that's maybe the easiest one you have left on paper, and I just don't. I'm not going to sit here and take that bait and think that it's going to be that easy. I just don't. I don't buy it.
I wanted you to take some bait. I wanted to be the more skeptical guy, but we are 2 long-time, well-established Red Raider fans. So maybe I shouldn't have been surprised that we're not quite taking the bait. I don't blame you. If you are out there, there is only one team at the top of the Big 12 standings right now, and that's the team we're talking about. So run wild with it if you want to. And I think I would agree when you're talking about, hey, you go 2-1 in these next 3.
The stretch is it's Fort Worth and Ames. That's what's going to decide this one way or the other.
That's a good way to break it down.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be good enough for you to go drop both of those, and then maybe it is, but I just don't know if you can survive that if you lose both of those games, because after that you have home games, and then you have one in Stillwater, which is, we've sat here and talked about, may be tough. It could be ugly. I mean, by then their problem is Alan Bowman's bad. Okay, he can't fix it. They're just, and Ollie Gordon was dinged up the other day. They don't have much behind Bowman. It doesn't appear, and so you just don't know what that looks like. But that's 5-6 weeks away. But it's Fort Worth and Ames, and everybody can go, TCU's terrible. Well, the problem that you have there is they have a lot of talent. They've just been turning it over by the bushel. And if they clean that up, they're going to be a problem. And then you also don't get to sneak up on anybody. They could feel like they fixed their whole season by beating you, because I know they don't care about you. They're worried about Baylor, or worried about locking you out of the stadium or whatever. But guess what? They'll start to feel a lot better about life in general and everything if they get a win over you. So you don't really have that luxury of kind of sneaking around the corner and slipping under the radar there when you go to Fort Worth. That's not going to exist. You're very much on their radar, and so now the good news is they're they go to Salt Lake City and play Utah the week before, and they do it really, really late. So if you want to look at schedules and kind of maybe, I don't know, maybe the TCU thing won't be as bad as we think based on some luck there. But I don't know. I'm not there yet. It's that 2-game road stretch.
So I think we're saying basically check in with us on November 3rd. That's one day after you go to Ames, Iowa, and maybe we'll have a better answer for you whenever that date comes to pass. I hope you continue to buck some trends and you're having some success on the road, and it's really continuing to do that'll get me into that camp a lot quicker. Obviously wins at home are nice, but doing something that you haven't done previously and kind of adding a final piece to your puzzle that you hope would be a contender type of puzzle, trying to figure that out, would be continuing to win on the road. So we'll see if they're able to sustain that on the other side of next week's matchup against Baylor when you go to Fort Worth to take on the Horned Frogs of Texas Christian. Before we get out of here today, Chris, I wanted to get to this because I've spent so much time going back and forth with Matador Mob insiders over this question that presented itself late in the game on Saturday night in Tucson, Arizona, and it involves the Big 12 co-offensive player of the week, Tahj Brooks. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Say you're watching a game, you get hit with a hunch, an instinctual calling. Well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're going to place your bets to keep up with everything going down in real time as you submit that slip. And right now, FanDuel is going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with only a $5 bet out the gate at FanDuel.com. You may recall a 32-yard touchdown run by Mr. Brooks to give Texas Tech a 2-score margin, made it 28-29. Whenever he crosses the goal line, there is 1:58 remaining on the clock. So Texas Tech had a 2-point lead. He scampers for 32, gets into the end zone with 1:58 remaining in the ball game to make it 28-19. And I mean, almost immediately, as I was talking with Matador Mobsters throughout the ball game, almost immediately I'm getting texts from them about should have slid there, should have went down at the goal line. We could have erased all hope of Arizona mounting any kind of comeback. And that debate has basically continued to play out in all manner of Red Raider circles this week. And I wanted to pick your brain on how you felt about it. I had no quarrel with it whatsoever. I knew exactly how I felt about it immediately. It's the way I feel about it right now. You score the freaking touchdown, in my opinion, because this goes back to like video game thinking, I think, is why a lot of people think this way. And this ain't no video game. It's real life. And I just feel like there are way too many things that can go wrong when you only have a 2-point lead to suggest that you could just isolate, hey, we'll run a few more plays, we'll run some clock, and then we'll decide to get in the end zone. It ain't always that easy. And really, I know that a field goal puts you out of that. They only need a field goal type of range. But it still ain't a touchdown lead if you're only getting 3 out of that. So I felt very clearly about it Saturday night in real time, and I think I still feel that way. But how did you feel about that situation, particularly now that we have a little hindsight at our disposal as well?
Yeah, and it was I rewatched the TV, rebroadcast of it, and I think it was Mark Helfrich. It was the color analyst, former Oregon head coach, and he kind of had said, "Yeah, that's why or some coaches would have tried not to score there or something." This is very similar conversation to like analytics and like new thinking. I think you and I are probably okay. So here's all the, and it's important to just lay it all out. Here's all the context I've got in my mind as it related to this particular situation. I think whenever the play stopped and he's in the end zone, there's 1:53 left. That's what the book says. 1:53 was left. Arizona has 2 timeouts. Okay. They don't have all 3, but they have 2. And if you slide at the 5, or whatever, you theoretically can't milk the entire clock. You could have made it extremely difficult, and more than likely ended a field goal if you wouldn't have. But that there's a risk with the field goal and missing it or getting it blocked or whatever. So there's no given. I mean, I think that you would have felt like you had 3 in your back pocket.
You still needed points one way or another. You wanted points.
Yep, you did. And then at that point, you're not covered because with a touchdown against you.
Yeah.
And so here's all the thoughts that are going through my brain. You had asked your defense to do a lot, but they were playing well. And and maybe this is me being, I don't know, a bird in the hand guy. But I'm thinking this way. They have 2 timeouts left. If you're telling me I get a 2-score, and because again, when you score the touchdown, he does have to make the extra point to actually give you that 2-score lead.
True.
So I'm thinking, okay, you're telling me if I give them a minute and a half, 2 timeouts, it's a 2-score game, and not only that, but they're gonna have to recover an onside kick. I just think I'm playing the odds there. I'm gonna take that. As opposed to, because here's what makes me nervous about even a 5-point lead and some time left. I'd seen that cat running around in the backfield. I'd seen that cat running around in the secondary, and I'm talking about their quarterback and the receiver. Yep. When, man, if you just miss a tackle or you get into a Hail Mary situation, he's taller than anybody you've got.
Right.
And he's going to want to redeem himself. I mean, so I had no problem with it based on the context of the game, but I'd probably do this every time. I mean, I just would.
Me too, man.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more in control, and I've put more on them having to do it. And this isn't the NFL. The NFL, you've got the kickers can make 65-yarders. The quarterbacks are so good in most cases. 2-minute offenses just scare you to death. I mean, like we've seen what Mahomes does. It's like you give him 23 seconds. It's like, remember that game with him and the Bills a few years ago when it's like they're just going, I don't think this is that. But I'm willing to take I mean, here's what I would say to that though. If I tell anybody, 100% of our audience, Matador Mob, lot audience or whatever, if I say to you, before this thing kicked off, you're getting a 2-score lead. You got a minute 53 left. They have 2 timeouts. Before this thing started, you got a 2, the however many lead. There's not a soul out there that would have said, "No, man, yeah, you just milk it, and then we'll try to run the clock out." No, you're taking it and running, and like, please no take backs, dude. No take backs. 100%. So that's where I was at, and I know that Sir Roderick did this a couple of years ago, and I'm like,
I was pissed off when he did that, and I was even madder when I guess we discovered that he was instructed to do that, and that was also in part because your field goal situation had been so dicey that year. And we're like, we're going to rely on the kicker to get this thing done when you had a chance to scamper into the. I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking about the last time when you tried to be smart, quote unquote.
It's the
you did survive it,
analytics.
thank God, but
you did. It's just you're either into that stuff or you're not. And here's the thing. You had struggled to run the ball. I think you're a little semi-timid at that point, maybe, or Tahj is, because he's fumbled twice in the second half.
Twice, yeah.
And I think you're just like 2 hands on the ball, and then he sees this hole open up, and I'd be curious to know, and I will ask Joey on his next coach's show, or maybe we'll get that answer out at the first press conference early next week. I wonder if that even crossed anybody's mind, because offense had been very difficult to come by in the second half. And it's like, wait, what's this? There's a field. Right. It's green. There's no Arizona Wildcats in front of me.
2 yards.
And I'm gonna just drop it at the 5 or at the 2.
At the 1, yeah.
Yeah. So
nah. I mean, they were still gonna have to score a touchdown. If you score your touchdown, they still were going to have to score a TD.
And then it would have been a 2-point conversion just to tie it if you miss your extra point. Yeah.
to get it going. So no, man, take the touchdown. There's way too much that can go wrong if you're asking yourself to run more plays. I wanted to ask you, did you see the UConn Temple finish? Which who in the hell would see the UConn Temple finish? So I didn't want to ask you that actually, but I don't know if you have seen the highlight, but there's like a fumble. I think Temple was trying to tush push at the goal line to win the game. They fumble and UConn takes it back 100 yards on a tush push play. And so that was just one example of like, man, you think it's so easy to just snap it, line it up, and roll on into the end zone? I don't think so. And for the reasons that you also added, given Tahj Brooks's night, I mean, hey, Tahj, we're going to give you, I don't know, 3 or 4 more carries at the goal line or whatever. Now don't get into the end zone too quick.
I know. And hold on to the ball. Hold on to the ball when they all would have been going for it. Yeah.
So I think it was the right call. And I'm honestly just a little annoyed that it's even a question because there's so many eras of football. It's like, what are you freaking crazy? Go down. What? But that was before the PlayStation was invented, I guess. So now people think just like, oh, it's this easy. You just hit X, you do this, you get in the end zone, whatever. That's what I attribute it to at least. But Chris and I are in agreement. If you are in disagreement, let us know. Shoot us a text if you're a Matador Mob insider, or let us know in the YouTube comments. Would love to hear from you. Appreciate the time as always, Chris. Enjoyed the conversation. Plenty more to get to coming up this week as we bide our time in the most electric way possible. It is the most electric open week you're going to find anywhere in the nation, right here on Locked On Texas Tech. So enjoyed it, and we'll see you back for the next one.
Yeah, and I'm going to try not to stress out about whether I would score a touchdown or not until the next time that we visit. So, because this is supposed to be a stress-free week, now you got me worried about stuff that No,
you got the right answer. No
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll talk to everybody tomorrow. It's supposed to be a stress-free week, people. So
get healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rest those livers up, rest up the body clock, get it back adjusted to God's time, LBK time. We got to get ready to roll for a 3:00 a week from Saturday from Jones Stadium against the Baylor Bears. Appreciate you guys being out there as always. Special tip of the cap to those everydayers who are mixing it up with us on Locked On Texas Tech. If you're an everydayer, you need to be a Matador Mob insider. So hit the show notes for the link there. You can try on a free 14-day trial, see how it suits you. It's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text straight to your phone. And, of course, the only way to get a question in for the Matador Mob mailbag, which we will get to a little bit later on in the week. Make sure you're subscribed otherwise on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And, of course, one of the best ways to help us grow the show is to comment anything below. So thanks to those who are doing that daily. Go and do it. If you haven't so far, dive in. The water is warm, and it's not even prickly right now. 4 in a row. We're feeling good, baby. Everybody is loving everybody in the YouTube comment section this week. So enjoy those good times while they last. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for the time. We appreciate you and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.